All right, this is Eric Broom, AEP 55, Module 9, Case Study. So let's summarize the facts. So we have Principal Inman. He's made his focus to build these relationships with the Southside students, which is also where he grew up. James is this 15-year-old who's kind of the ringleader of that group, and he has started to build that relationship with the principal, or assistant principal. David, who's an honor student, he was caught with these brass knuckles that James gave to him at an earlier point that day. James admitted to it, but the police officer still arrested both David and James for a felony, which includes that 45-plus days of expulsion. James' parents are used to the bad behavior and think it's going to be good for him. David's parents are pretty upset. Principal Inman, he's feeling pretty remorseful about David and having consequences of this caliber when David's never had any past issues. After Assistant Principal Inman allowed David back into classes, the Director of Secondary Education told him it'd be in his best interest to continue to file this expulsion for David, otherwise he's going to receive a formal reprimand. So that's kind of the situation we got. Legal, ethical wise, expelling James but not David, one or the other, and not both. That seems like it could be some kind of legal or ethical issue, but I think that kind of depends. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Assistant Principal Inman and the head principal, they've probably breached their contracts by not following the board policy and allowing David back into the classroom, unless there's some piece that we don't know about. And what if Principal Inman had not had the officer in the room? Would that have changed anything, or how he would have handled that? And would he have made the ethical choice, legal choice, or would he have done things differently? I didn't see anybody that was harmed, and I didn't see any harassment. Synthesizing in a single sentence, after following district policy regarding student felony charges and the consequences that accompany it, Assistant Principal Inman is having an ethical and moral dilemma about if David should be held to that policy, even though he was being bullied and pressured by James to hold the knuckles in the first place, as well as because James admitted to the knuckles being his. And then the standard below that goes with it. So looking at the facts, so the placement program, we're looking at Rocket Junior High. It's 900 students. The South Side, which we talked about before. Since James is 15 years old, he must have been held back, I'm assuming, if he is in this junior high. That's my best guess. Unless it's a combined 7 through 12 school, and so that I'm not sure of. It doesn't really specify that. Principal Inman he was staying later after school playing basketball in an attempt to build relationships with a rougher bunch of students. And as far as we know, that was open to anybody, so I don't think that was discriminatory or anything negative. The people, so we already talked about Principal Inman, his first year. James, who's the troublemaker and running things around. David, who's the honor student. He has good grades. James's parents are used to the behavior. David's parents are furious. And kind of randomly, we have this fifth period teacher who initially had James called into the office, who's kind of irrelevant in this as far as I know. Reviewing, so the stakeholders, all stakeholders, including teacher, admin team, leadership team, the school lawyer, State Department of Education, the board, parents, students, they should all be informed by now of what's going on in some way, shape, or form. The biggest communication is going to be, with the administration team, the board, the school lawyer, and that needs to be happening constantly, so that way we can figure out those next steps. Other things we could know: is there any leeway in the board policy for a situation like this? Have we looked at how the bullying affects the consequences? So does James bullying David change anything? Was the head principal involved at all? Why is Principal Inman taking the reprimand and not the head principal? Is it the same consequences for a first-time offender and the multi-offender? Knowing what we know, the decision I would make could be varied if I had the ability to have these conversations with stakeholders and read our district policies more in depth, but I will show you what I think. So, number one, leave David in school, accept the reprimand, and accept whatever consequences will come, which could be termination, demotion, possible legal pursuit from James's parents, and saying that David should have also been arrested. So there's that one. Followed through with David's suspension, even though he already came back to school, put him back into that DEA program alongside James. And then option 3, kind of a combination, is talking with law enforcement to discuss the charges. Is there any way to have David's charges dropped or changed, considering what we know about the situation? Okay, and again, adding in that component 2.3 below. So option 1, this would benefit David the most, letting him continue his perfect record. His parents would be happy. Principal Inman would feel he did the moral correct thing. However, there would be repercussions regarding the reprimand from the state, whatever pushback we get from stakeholders. It's tough to say what could happen from that. Option 2, this would follow district policy and be the ethical decision, I think, to make following that policy. David's parents would be infuriated, and we'd have some pushback. We may want to look at changes in the policy, but I don't think David's future would really take a hit, considering he's only 13 years old or whatever in junior high. I don't think that's going to do a whole lot to his future. Option 3, that's something I think that I would want to happen either way, I think. Again, I would get consultation from my leadership team. But if David can have things changed or dropped, I feel like that would be ideal. So again, I would choose option 2. I would first meet with that school lawyer and the school police officer, discuss any possible charges of being dropped or adjusted. Then I would meet with my administrative team, school leaders, get the perspectives, ideas of if we're getting or missing anything. Then I would meet with David and his parents, discuss the suspension details, the why, and the support that we'll be showing David through the process, and just how the next steps are going to go, and making sure we have legal advisors in this meeting. Then we're just going to have to reevaluate our district policies, why everything happened the way it did, if anything happened that needs to be changed, and so forth. Okay, special notes, is it wrong for us to work closely with law enforcement and attempt to support David? Okay, is that going to give us a lot of pushback? What's that going to look like? Does it change anything knowing David's 13, James is 15? Why is the assistant principal getting the reprimand, not the head? Does James bullying David play in the situation? Did the officer do his job correctly by arresting both students? Okay, so those are some kind of questions that were on my mind through it all, and just wanted to share those. And then my reflection, which I will post in the module. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.